We have with us a talk show host in his own right, his own extraordinaire, Lou Gentile, Lou Gentile Show. Welcome, Lou.
How are you doing, my friend?
Well, having kind of a rough day here, actually.
Huh? Yeah, it sounds like you got poltergeist going on over there.
Yeah, you know, that's what I would say. I mean, you know, things do happen, but they seem to happen at the most opportune times. It seems like there's an intelligence behind it.
Right.
And I don't know. I mean,
what kind of an intelligence, James?
A trickster. I mean, it's not trying to destroy everything, because that would be easy enough, a fry circuit or whatever, but it's just tweaking it enough to cause trouble. I mean, that's what I would say. I don't know, it's irrational, but I don't know. That's kind of how it feels. I know your expertise, amongst being a talk show host, is in this field of demonology. Now, I don't know, does demonology have, is that a big field, real big nasty stuff, or does that include things like poltergeists?
Well, I mean, basically, what I deal with are violent hauntings and anything that's doing any kind of harm to people. That's for the most part what it is. Poltergeist, for the most part, there's a couple different classifications of poltergeist, but when you look at, it could be looking from the mind, telekinesis, telekinesis, things like that, and more than likely, a lot of what goes on is, things being thrown across the room, sometimes hitting people, so that would classify it as, something hurting somebody. But, you have a lot of different type of poltergeist activity that is just bad, which, anytime you have any kind of movement of objects, levitation of things or people, that classifies itself as being a poltergeist as well. Poltergeist being from the old German word, or being a German word meaning noisy ghost, a disturbing ghost. And, anything like that can be classified as a poltergeist.
Can it be more subtle, or is it usually something that's pretty much like a chair going through the air? To me, it's not too subtle.
Well, I mean, it usually starts out subtle. Usually there's teenage kids that are involved with poltergeist cases. Usually kids are going through the puberty stage, and their energy's moving around, and it starts off slow. Now, if you want to talk about just a physical type of manifestation of energy that's, supposedly being portrayed, through another, through a human being and portrayed or projected into our reality, which means that their energy is, they're on the same ether that we use in our psychic abilities and things like that, except energy's being transferred. And, usually it starts out slow, and then over the course of, 6 months, you could actually start to notice that things are starting to get out of control. But like I said, that's for only when you're dealing with the natural type of phenomena that a child is going through, or a teenager is going through when they're going through puberty. If you deal with something that is a poltergeist case in itself, then a lot of times it does start out small. Water poltergeists are notorious for that. What starts out as a drip could start out as raining, 6 months later, it's raining in the kitchen, or it's raining in the dining room, or whatever. And, things like that do actually happen.
Have you seen some of these things, like water coming out of nowhere and all that stuff?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's even a place today that I just frequently visit, because there have been, I mean, I myself am an HVAC mechanic, which is heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and, and I go out every single day, so I know all about temperature drops and all that other crazy stuff. And I frequently go to a place that I know of that supposedly has some very weird water phenomena in it. Now, whether that's something that is, classified as being a poltergeist or not, it's an unknown, because there's no other activity except for water showing up on the ceiling in different places, and it's not around a bathtub or an upstairs bathroom, and the drywall's been replaced a gazillion times, and the people are just going out of their minds. And, what do you do in a case like that? I mean, you could check the humidity and the moisture temperatures and use a sling psychrometer to try and find out what's going on. But when all else fails and there's no natural explanation, it kind of makes you wonder. But getting into the spiritual side of things, I mean, I've been involved with poltergeist cases where, there's physical manifestations of things, and things are being thrown around the house. And as a matter of fact, one of the first cases that I ever did for Ed and Lorraine Warren was a poltergeist case when I was involved with John Zaffis. up in Rome, New York, and there were a lot of things that were going on there. And one of the things that I always tell people that's pretty prevalent on most poltergeist cases is right before the activity occurs, you actually smell what would be best described as being static in the air. Like right after a very highly charged rainstorm or a thunder and lightning storm, you walk outside and you smell that static that's out there in the air. You smell it. And that's basically what happens right before any of the activity occurs.
Now, is it possible that in these cases where the water drips and all that, that there's some kind of a hole in dimensions, and it's, I don't know, maybe there's a river or something in another dimension, and there's kind of a leak, if you want to call it, between dimensions or something like that?
Well, you mean like a portal?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes people, psychics use that a lot. They say, well, this is a portal into our reality. This is where the ghosts are coming in. This is where the spirits are coming through. In my research, I would say that that's probably very rare that there is some sort of a portal like that. As ironic as it may seem, when I was a kid, my sister always used to say that. My sister always used to say, my God, there's a portal or something here. I can feel it. My sister really didn't even know what being psychic was at all, but she can pick up on stuff. And she used to say that all the time. Later on, as I grew further involved in the work, basically I found out that, yeah, that is prevalent on some cases, but it's not as common as some people may think.
Now, is there, in a case of people start to think about stuff going wrong, I mean, I know a lot of times, like if you buy a new car, all of a sudden everyone around you bought that same car. That's just a case of recognition. You didn't really pay attention before. And then perhaps stuff started happening, and then you start to notice it and key on it more, and it really doesn't happen more, but it seems that way. But there's got to be a point where it's like it's obvious things are starting to go wrong. And what do you suggest at that point someone does?
Well, I mean, most hauntings, when they occur, like you said, they start out very subtle. You may not know you have a haunting until 6 months after the fact, or where it's just too late. Basically, what people can do, if you're, when you're dealing with a human spirit case, human spirit cases are usually the kind of cases where they're looking for recognition. They want the attention of the living because they, have been earthbound for whatever reason that may be, and they are looking, to try and get your attention to maybe relay a message or give you information or something along those lines. When you're dealing with something that's negative, demonic, diabolical, whatever you want to call it, usually those kind of cases start off with Ouija boards, or some kind of divination whatsoever. And then when you get into the people finally using that divination, and a week or 2 weeks, a month, a year, 5 years down the road, all of a sudden they start to get a little haunting that develops, and 6 months later, almighty hell's breaking out in the house, and they just noticed it. There's no real cure for people who are afflicted with a haunting to say, hey, listen, if you notice this happening, it's a haunting, because then you'd have everybody, totally, on edge trying to see if they had a haunting. The best thing that you could tell people is, hey, listen, if you notice that maybe the keys are disappearing, or, different small objects are disappearing and reappearing in different places, and you know for a fact it's not you doing it, if the lights are going on and off in the house, contact an organization that deals with it and have them come out and do an investigation to see if there's really anything going on. You don't want to try taking pictures in your own house. You don't want to try using EVPs, because you do not know what you're contacting. And again, that's almost in a sense giving recognition, and almost in a sense divination. And a lot of religions are against divination. A lot of religions, don't want you to have any kind of future knowledge, or even, acknowledge the existence of the dead. And, so there really is no surefire method or way to really know exactly or tell somebody exactly what to do in the event that they have a haunting.
Now, does the haunting always manifest in these events, like you're saying, or can there be spirits or demons or whatever just sitting around poking you, and, like pushing your little spiritual buttons, or your bad, you come from had a problem as a kid or something, they can figure that out and start pushing little buttons there and causing disharmony? I mean, is that a possible? Can that happen, or is it always going to be like stuff flying around the room and?
Well, explain that to me a little bit easier.
All right, I'm thinking like
a little bit more simpler how you want to relay it to everybody.
All right, so is it possible that these demons or whatever would not actually physically manifest, but start poking around inside you to push some of your buttons, like influencing other people to say keywords that they know will set you off mad or stuff like that? Start messing around with your mind, so to speak.
Well, I mean, we're talking basically demonology here in Devils and Demons, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so, possession is very, very rare. Oppression is actually very common on cases. If people are using divination, and let's give an example of the Ouija board. Somebody uses the Ouija board, and they try to contact Uncle Jim. And they're like, Uncle Jim, give me a sign that you're here. Well, that's the wrong thing, because a sign could be crashing a bookcase on your head.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, well, you have to be aware of this, and there's a lot of organizations that will do that. Give me a sign that you're here. Well, yeah, that sign may be that, whatever you're dealing with could be something negative, and you get in a car accident that night. That's your sign. I mean, you have to be very, very careful with doing that, because it falls along the lines of what we call basically provoking things. And so when you deal with a spirit that is inside of someone, usually they have given permission for that spirit to come in. A negative spirit is not going to just enter into somebody and say, hey, I'm going to reside in here and we're going to party all night. That's not how it works. Usually the person has to give some kind of permission, whether it is using the Ouija board, which means that they're using their body as a catalyst, which means that they're saying to the spirit world, come on in, and you can use me and do whatever you have to do to communicate. Some people use automatic writing, which is the same thing. Some people use the pendulum, which is the same thing. A lot of different things. Cable tipping is another thing. You're using your body as a catalyst, in a room, where they're supposedly conducting a seance and trying to, use the powers of the ether of the one of the astral planes in order to tip tables or however they want to do it. I mean, there's physical explanations for that as well, but that is kind of, how it works. I mean, you don't really just walk down the street and have a spirit come inside of you. But when a spirit is inside of you, yeah, there are many different things that they can do that will give you the sign that there is something in somebody. And usually by bringing up religion of any sort is what triggers a lot of this. I mean, I had an investigator come over from England that was following me about 3 years ago when I'm on 2 cases of mine and stayed with me for about a week. And I told him when I went over to this case in Jersey, I said, listen, this lady has, she is oppressed. There is definitely a spirit there. The church is involved with this lady, and you need to not say anything religious around her. Just ask her basic questions and interview her. That's it. And we didn't exploit her or anything. They weren't going to use her name. They were just going to, document what was going on. And, this kid, thought it was a joke, and he went ahead and he went ahead and asked her about religion. He said, what religion are you? To believe in Jesus Christ? And that's it. She went nuts and took him and threw him across the room. And that experience that he had of a 100-pound woman throwing him across the room led him on a search for the paranormal. And to this day, he's actually going out, traveling around the world, going to different types of paranormal phenomena, whether it be ghosts, demons, exorcists, previous cases like Enfield, and he's actually writing a book, and 30% of that book is going to entail the encounters that he had when he was with me, and, actually was opened up into the world of the things that are around us that we can't see.
Now, you mentioned about you have to get permission. I mean, where's the rule book? These demons don't sound like they're really rule abiders, so where does that rule come from where you have to give permission for them to come in?
Oh, there are rules. There has to be rules. If there weren't any rules, then it'd be like Ghostbusters, and you'd have them flying all over the place. You'd have things going on here that it would just make living in this world a living hell, and that's what it would be. It'd be hell on earth. Basically, the way that I look at it, I mean, even though I'm Roman Catholic, I deal with many different religions, and every single religion that is out there that is on the positive side has always had some kind of a negative being that is involved with the religion, or a demon or a devil. The idea that people would say, well, demons and devils were thought up by the Roman Catholic Church in order to scare people, in the medieval times is a load of crap, because they were, demons and devils have been documented, 2,000 years before Christianity was ever even thought of being a religion. And you could go on one continent, find, an image of some kind of a demonic-looking being or negative being, whatever you want to think, and then, halfway across the world on the other side, you'll have something that looks almost similar. So, when we look at these different types of beings and where they come from and all that, I mean, it can get very, very complex. But the bottom line is that, these things have to abide by certain rules, and the rules is that, when they are not out, for the most part, to kill us, their goal is to take us over and occupy. That's what it is. And there are instances where, it is reported that they have, that these things have killed people, because if things can be levitated and things can be moved, what's stopping them from throwing a knife that's sitting on the edge of a counter at your jugular vein and killing you? So it is possible. But their whole purpose is to infiltrate the body and occupy it, because the body is a symbol of God, and if they can occupy that, then they have accomplished their mission.
And it'd be like also where they're at, disembodied. It might be simply, I don't know if I can use the word fun. It would be fun to be able to enter in a human, into the human senses and so forth, and manipulate it for their, twisted enjoyment or whatever.
Well, that's what they do. I mean, basically, when you talk to these things, they are, the way I look at it is they're out of the light of God, and it's almost like a mass consciousness. That's how I can explain it. And they're very childish. They do childish things, but you always have to remember that there is a lot of power behind these things. When you get involved with cases that you investigate and you interview someone and it turns out that they're oppressed, and all of a sudden things start to happen, and you bring forth this entity and it starts telling you things that nobody else knows and saying things to everybody else in the room that nobody else knows. And then the next thing you know, 30 or 40 cases down the line, you meet that entity again in somebody else that starts bringing up information from a past case. That's scary, okay, because that is telling me, yeah, these things are definitely real. I mean, nobody can take that away from me. I know these things are real, but when other people are witnessing this who really maybe have never witnessed it before, then, it's really, really scary, and it's not the kind of work that I would suggest anybody get involved with, because you're always a target.
Yeah, just from the hearing Malachi Martin talk and others, it doesn't sound like it's a lot of fun. But we're going to take a break here, and we'll be back. Lou Gentile is here talking his experiences with demonology. We have with us a guest that popped in real quick, Lou Gentile. He's known for Lou Gentile's show, and you've moved your show to a prime time slot. Yeah. I had to move my show from 1 to 5 a.m. to 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday, because it was too much. I have too many TV series things that I'm getting involved with, TV shows. I got a movie to do. I got all kinds of crazy things that I'm working with. Plus, at the same time, my day job that I have Monday through Friday, it's just way too much, and I can only devote 2 hours to the show anymore. And 1 to 5 a.m. was a test, and it's just not going to work right now. It's just way too much. Well, if people listen to IBC Radio Network 8 to 10 Eastern, you can hear that show. I bet that still will be an action-packed 2 hours.
Yeah, well, there's you got to understand. I mean, most of the listeners, at least on the internet, when we moved 1 to 5 a.m., they were just like, "Oh man, this is ridiculous. I ain't hanging around from 1 to 5 a.m." and they go to bed. I mean, so we're basically gearing at looking at getting our old audience back on the internet, and I mean, I've lost about 2 affiliates because of the new time change, but the rest of them are still there, and a lot of them are going to rebroadcast the show late night anyway, so it's not going to matter.
All right. Well, right now we're interviewing you, the talk show host, as you, the demonologist, and one of the things I wondered is a lot of people who channel, be it call them professional psychics, even people who have all this training and discipline and all that, I often wonder, since they're not demonologists, they haven't had Demonology 101, how do they really know that they're channeling angels as opposed to channeling demons?
Well, it's always an advisable rule, at least with me, that I do not bring in psychics unless they have a lot of training and they know how to distinguish the fact between a human spirit and something demonic or diabolical, or even something negative. There are people who go into homes and they are psychic, and when they come out of those homes, if it has something negative inside of it, they never get involved with the work again. These things have the wisdom of the ages. These things can play with your mind, and if you are psychic and you walk into a home and you don't know how to control that or block it out or distinguish if what you are dealing with is in fact a human spirit or something of a negative, demonic, or diabolical nature, then, you can really mess yourself up and you can become, a psychic hairball. And in some cases, you can go insane. I mean, I've seen people who were doing the work for 10 years all of a sudden decide that they wanted to get involved with demonology, and they were psychics, and all of a sudden they started getting involved in these cases, and they just couldn't take it anymore, and they got completely out of the work. And that happens almost all the time, because you have to know how to distinguish between something that is human, something that is, good, and where to distinguish between something that it's lying to you and that has an agenda. And it takes a lot of work in order to figure that out. I mean, even when I'm investigating cases, at least on a physical sense, I have to have physical evidence to show clergy that, hey, there's something going on with the case. I can't just walk in there and say, I feel that there's 5 demons in this house or a negative spirit. They'll laugh me right out of the chancellery. You have to have some kind of physical evidence in order to prove that there's something going on in a home, whether it be electronic voice phenomena, whether it be photographs, whether it be video evidence, whatever. There has to be witnesses to it. And it does take a lot. But getting back to your question again, it's going to take a lot of experience for somebody who is psychic to determine whether or not what is in that home is actually something good or something bad.
Is there a kind of a toolbox litmus test that you could use to discern? Is there something that will trip up even the most clever and evil and, ancient demon that they just can't lie? Is there some kind of phrase?
For a psychic?
Yeah, no, I mean for you. When you do this, is there something that flushes them out no matter how clever they are?
I can't really answer that because I know things that were passed down to me from demonologist to demonologist that if I start talking about it, it'll be like Demonology 101, then everybody's going to start doing it. That's the problem.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's fair
enough.
You know
what I'm saying? I mean, there are ways that I know of how to provoke something, but I don't go into everybody's home going, I command you to leave and, doing all kinds of crazy stuff, provoking what doesn't need to be provoked. You don't want to provoke in somebody's house unless you know how to control it. Do I know how to control it? Yes, I know how to control it 95% of the time. But there's 5% where, forget it. You might as well lock the house up, or you might as well, take the person and lock them up in a mental institution until you can get a handle on what's going on with the situation, because it's dangerous. And, when you deal with people and their psyche, it's it can be very, very trippy. I mean, when I say trippy, I mean it can really bend your reality, because for someone to tell you something that they don't know about you that is dead on, well, that would freak most people out. That's for sure.
Oh, no, I want to tell you, Lou, that has happened to someone very close to me very recently, and it has completely changed, her focus and how she feels, and it brings up an ethical question of, when does a psychic and how far does a psychic go when they get information? And that kind of overlaps that other question is like, who told her that information knowing that it would trip the person up? It's a real fine line.
Well, human spirits, when they communicate, they're basically trying to give you a message. You could look at human spirit cases as being you know, a lot of people when they die, and research has proven this, for up to 48 hours, the body hangs around, the spirit hangs around, let's say. And they, you know, they, let's say, see their funeral, they maybe, you know, maybe try to take care of business, you know, see different things, whatever. Some of those human spirits want to pass on and go to the light. Others do not. They want to remain earthbound, and they want to stay there. The problem with that is that when they become earthbound, all of a sudden they have the possibility that something negative could come, attach itself to them, and then go ahead and create a violent haunting. And at the same time, the human spirit could be relaying information to, let's say, a psychic, telling them, okay, well, you know, your father's will is upstairs in a safe or in a chest, in a secret drawer, and they could go up there, find it, and all of a sudden, doesn't matter what happens, any information that spirit now tells that psychic, they think it's a human spirit and it's all good. But it's very well possible that it could have an alternative method, and it's being controlled by something negative. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't go running into people's houses saying, you have demons and devils in your house. And, you know, it's not like that at all. At all. It takes a lot of research whether to find out if something's positive or negative. And especially with the negative side, you have to find out, you know, at least in my research, I've come up with basically three things. You have to find out if there is a presence first in the home, then you have to, or in the person, then you have to find out if there's a personality to it, then you have to find out if there's power to it. And usually it doesn't go beyond step 2 with a human spirit, okay? Because human spirits can only, at least through a lot of people's research, including mine, can only lift up to about 15 pounds, you know, of physical matter. Anything over that is game for negative entities, which have a lot of energy to them. And with people being scared and fearing things and, you know, psychics feeding into them and using their energy to fuel the fire, you know, that can create a very nasty situation that probably none of your listening audience would ever want to become involved with.
No, including me. Because, you know, I respect that power. You know, we hear things like if you use the name of Jesus Christ, and a lot of the Christian groups say that, well, I can't be possessed, I can't be affected because I'm saved. Right. But there's, I mean, while the principle of God would be more powerful than the demons, there's still, to me, some kind of a, it's kind of a, not a loophole, but it's too naive just to say that and then not be affected if you're going to start fooling around in that area.
Well, there's a lot of people out there that say, oh, there's no demons, no devils, no negative entities whatsoever. Now, I can understand them saying there's no demons and devils, but to say that there's no negative entities, I'm sorry. We have the yin and the yang. We have positive and negative. It's proven all throughout the universe. There's certain things that are in the universe that we just can't deny, and the negative aspects of things is one of them. You know, when you deal with the spirit world, it's the same thing. There's no question, at least in my mind, about it. A lot of researchers will go out and investigate and say, hey, listen, I'm going to start to investigate demonology. And it's even happened with my show. That's why I've stopped a lot of Demonology 101, because people would listen to me. They would get as much information as they can, throw a camera in their trunk, go out and call themselves a demonologist, and next thing you know, they're either on the phone with me or John Zaffis or somebody else trying to find out what the hell they do when they really encounter something. And then there's people who just make up cases. You know, they all of a sudden, you know, hear something and they don't know how to distinguish between a natural phenomena and something that, you know, could possibly be psychic, you know, or could be, you know, of the paranormal nature. Can't be really explained by the realms of natural science. And so it takes a lot. I mean, you have to have, you know, for years I used to call it common sense, but you know what? The more that I talk with people and the more that they bring it up, it's a gift. I mean, the gift that I have is it's an inner knowledge that either I was given at birth to have, because I feel like this. Anymore, I feel as though I am here to help people. I am here to get involved with these cases. I am here to bring a little bit of good to this world as far as the paranormal is concerned and demonology is concerned. And I'm here to, you know, help people as much as I can get out of these sticky situations. And knowing that when I talk to people, no matter where I go, it's like I automatically, you know, I know exactly what I need to tell them and how they need to handle the situation. Some people can accept that. Other people, well, they're only going to believe what they want to believe, and sometimes people are only going to hear what they want to hear. And you can only help somebody if they truly want to be helped. And that's the bottom line.
I'm hoping that there's some kind of a veil that if you don't cross it, your odds of being affected by this would be minimal. Because it's almost like if you're like there's like a protection, but as soon as you give permission, whether it be like you say Ouija boards or whatever, now you've opened that gate that give a kind of a legal loophole for someone to come in.
Yeah, but here's the thing: you become a target. Those people are afflicted with a problem, like a parasite. What I do is a little bit different. What I do is I actually foil their plans and help the people get out of the problem that they're in, and that's when you become a target. Okay,
that's what actually I wanted to ask you. We'll come back from the break. I imagine your name is kind of known in demondom, and I'm wondering if that you've not had people or beings come after you. The question, you've been doing this for a while. You've run into entities, and I get from your talking multiple times, they must got your number. And I'm wondering if somebody like you in your line, they don't come looking for you.
Oh, that they do.
Well, do you...
all the time.
But because you have, like, the knowledge that's been passed down that gives you that safety, or do you still have to kind of look over your shoulder?
Well, here's the way it works. Because of the line of work that I'm involved with, no matter how I protect myself, I still run the risk of having things come home with me. At the same time, because of the line of work that I'm involved with, when I tempt fate with these things, or I go ahead and provoke them to come out of slumber, or I foil their plans because I've gotten the family the help that they need to get out of what they're doing to create the problem, I'm a target. And when you cross that line where you foil their plans, where you help a family get out of a situation, then you become a target. And it doesn't matter where you are, doesn't matter what you're doing, you always have to be very careful that something could happen. It's something that you always have to have in the back of your mind that, hey, maybe I shouldn't get too close to this ledge if I'm on top of a roof because something may actually push me off. I've thought about that a gazillion times, but at the same time, I know that God won't let that happen because I'm not doing something to directly provoke them in a particular case at that particular time. I still can have a haunting. I could still have things happen around me. I mean, I've had things try to throw cinder blocks at me. I have pictures of it. Anybody who's ever been to my lecture will see that, things have thrown cinder blocks at me that are levitating in thin air and have the face of whatever it is that's, behind the power actually imprinted on the cinder block, which is crazy as it sounds, does happen. But at the same time, I take a lot of these objects that I find in people's homes that are either haunted or that they're using as a catalyst, Ouija boards, chains, sacrificial knives, books of shadows, things involved with Satanism and demon worship, you name it. I take these things from these people, and they give it to me willingly in order to get the help that they need, and I lock them up, and they never come out, unless I happen to show somebody this. But some of the objects I won't even bring out anymore, and I probably won't bring them out for 5-10 years just to see what's going on with that object. A lot of these things that I have collected over the years, have to have the specific rites done over top of them. Some of them are Roman Catholic rites, some of them are Jewish rites, some of them are Buddhist rites, some of them are Baptist rites. I mean, it depends. It depends on what family was involved with it, what the religious beliefs were. It depends on a lot of different things. But even my home at some particular points of the year is very active. There was a time when I was doing 5, 6, 7 cases at one time until a clergy member said, "Hey, Lou, you need to stop this because you're getting hit at every single angle." And I was like, okay. And as soon as I said that, I had a major haunting in my home where I had to send my whole family down the shore for a week while I took care of it with 3 priests because it was so bad in here. I would sit here with friends or my wife, and the next thing you know, you'd get a growl just out of nowhere, and it'd freak everybody out, and I'd be like, just ignore it.
Just ignore it.
Just ignore it. That's all you can do.
I understand
That's all you can do, because if you run, if you freak out, you give it more power, and it'll come back 10 times worse.
Wow. Well, I'm sure we just scratched the surface, but I appreciate sharing your wisdom on this stuff. It cleared a few things up for me, and I appreciate you going into this. And, perhaps we can talk again more in detail sometime.
Not a problem, James. Anytime you want.
Yeah, thanks for stepping in.
Yep.
Lou Gentile, LouGentile.com, Lou Gentile Show, Lou Gentile the Demonologist. He's got a few hats here. He's the man behind IBC, the computers. It's all good. Well,
ghost, a disturbing ghost, and anything like that can be classified as a poltergeist.
Can it be more subtle, or is it usually something that's pretty much like a chair going through the air? To me, it's not too subtle.
Well, it usually starts out subtle. Usually there's teenage kids that are involved with poltergeist cases. Usually kids are going through the puberty stage, and their energy's moving around, and it starts off slow. Now, if you want to talk about just a physical type of manifestation of energy that's, supposedly being portrayed, through another, through a human being and portrayed or projected into our reality, which means that their energy is, they're on the same ether that we use in our psychic abilities and things like that, except energy's being transferred. And, usually it starts out slow, and then over the course of,
a big field, real big nasty stuff, or does that include things like poltergeists?
Well, basically what I deal with are violent hauntings and anything that's doing any kind of harm to people. That's for the most part what it is. Poltergeist, for the most part, there's a couple different classifications of poltergeist, but when you look at, it could be looking from the mind, telekinesis, telekinesis, things like that, and more than likely, a lot of what goes on is, things being thrown across the room, sometimes hitting people, so that would classify it as, something hurting somebody. But, you have a lot of different type of poltergeist activity that is just bad, which, anytime you have any kind of movement of objects, levitation of things or people, that classifies itself as being a poltergeist as well. Poltergeist being from the old German word, or being a German word meaning noisy ghost. And I frequently go to a place that I know of that supposedly has some very weird water phenomena in it. Now, whether that's something that is, classified as being a poltergeist or not, it's an unknown, because there's no other activity except for water showing up on the ceiling in different places, and it's not around a bathtub or an upstairs bathroom, and the drywall's been replaced a gazillion times, and the people are just going out of their minds. And what are you to do in a case like that? You could check the humidity and the moisture temperatures and use a sling psychrometer to try and find out what's going on. But when all else fails and there's no natural explanation, it kind of makes you wonder. But getting into the spiritual side of things, I've been involved with poltergeist cases where, there's physical manifestations of things, and things are being thrown around the house. And as a matter of fact, one of the first cases that I ever did for Ed and Lorraine Warren was a poltergeist month. You could actually start to notice that things are starting to get out of control. But like I said, that's for only when you're dealing with the natural type of phenomena that a child is going through, or a teenager is going through when they're going through puberty. If you deal with something that is a poltergeist case in itself, then a lot of times it does start out small. Water poltergeists are notorious for that. What starts out as a drip could start out as raining, 6 months later it's raining in the kitchen, or it's raining in the dining room, or whatever. And, things like that do actually happen.
Have you seen some of these things, like water coming out of nowhere and all that stuff?
Oh yeah, there's even a place today that I just frequently visit, because there have been, I myself am an HVAC mechanic, which is heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and and I go out every single day, so I know all about temperature drops and all that other crazy stuff.
We have with us a talk show host in his own right, his own extraordinaire, Lou Gentile, Lou Gentile Show. Welcome, Lou.
How are you doing, my friend?
Well, having kind of a rough day here, actually.
Huh? Yeah, it sounds like you got poltergeist going on over there.
Yeah, I that's what I would say. Things do happen, but they seem to happen at the most opportune times. It seems like there's an intelligence behind it.
Right.
And I don't know.
What kind of an intelligence, Chance?
a trickster. I mean, it's not trying to destroy everything, because that would be easy enough, fry a circuit or whatever, but it's just tweaking it enough to cause trouble. I mean, that's what I would say. I don't know, it's irrational, but I don't know. That's kind of how it feels. I know you're in your expertise, amongst being a talk show host, is in this field of demonology. Now, I don't know, does demonology have, is that a